February 7th, 1964, 7:22 a.m., Forest Hill Cemetery, Memphis, Tennessee. A groundskeeper named Thomas Webb walks his morning route. The grass is wet with dew, cold, silent. He approaches section 16, the Presley family plot. Something is wrong. He stops, stares, runs. Gladys Love Presley's grave has been destroyed. The headstone cracked, spray paint across the marble, red letters, crude, hateful. Elvis is dead. Long live the Beatles. Flowers scattered, vases shattered. The bronze memorial plaque bent, torn from its mounting. Thomas Webb's hands shake as he calls the police. This isn't vandalism. This is desecration. This is war. The same morning, 2:983 miles away, John F. Kennedy International Airport, New York City, 1:20 p.m. Eastern Time, Pan Am Flight 101 touches down. The door opens. 4 young men step out: John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, Ringo Starr. The Beatles have arrived in America. 3,000 screaming fans wait on the tarmac. More than greeted any president. More than welcomed any hero. The noise is deafening. The press is everywhere. 200 journalists. 73 photographers. This is the moment that will change music forever. The British invasion begins now. And back in Memphis, at Forest Hill Cemetery, police tape surrounds Gladys Presley's grave. The timing is not a coincidence. Quick thought. Have you ever been replaced by something newer, something younger and felt invisible? Drop a comment. What happens in the next 18 minutes will reveal a side of Elvis Presley nobody expected. A response so shocking, so unexpected, it will redefine what it means to be a legend. Here is the story. Let's go back 6 weeks. December 26th, 1963. I Want to Hold Your Hand is released in America. Capitol Records, the Beatles' first major U.S. single. Within 3 days, it sells 250,000 copies. Within 2 weeks, 1 million. It's a phenomenon. Radio stations can't play it enough. Teenagers can't buy it fast enough. The music industry watches in shock, because this isn't how it's supposed to work. American rock and roll conquered the world. Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, Little Richard. They built this sound. They created this culture. Now 4 kids from Liverpool are selling it back to America. Better, faster, fresher. The media immediately creates a narrative. Old versus new, Elvis versus Beatles, the King versus the Fab Four. Magazine covers scream the comparison. Is Elvis over? Beatles, the new kings of rock? America's darling dethroned? It's manufactured drama. Clickbait before the internet. But it works. People choose sides. Teenage girls especially. Team Elvis or Team Beatles. You can't be both. The war is on. Elvis is at Graceland during all this. He's 30 years old, no longer the rebel from 1956, no longer the dangerous hip-swiveling sensation. He's making movies now, 3 a year. Kissin' Cousins, Viva Las Vegas, Roustabout. Fun, light, forgettable. His last #1 hit was Good Luck Charm, 2 years ago. Since then, nothing breaks the top 5. The music has changed, the world has moved on, and Elvis knows it. Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's manager, calls an emergency meeting. January 15th, 1964. Graceland, the living room. Elvis sits on the couch. Colonel Parker paces. Red West stands by the door. Joe Esposito takes notes. Parker is angry, frustrated. These Beatles boys, they're stealing your thunder, Elvis. Elvis doesn't respond, just listens. Parker continues. We need to make a statement. Go on Ed Sullivan. Do a live performance. Remind America who the real king is. Elvis shakes his head. No. Parker stops pacing. What do you mean, no? Elvis's voice is quiet but firm. I mean, no, Colonel. I'm not going to war with 4 kids who make good music. But they're taking what's yours. Elvis looks at him. It was never mine to keep. That conversation reveals something important. Something the media doesn't know. Something fans don't understand. Elvis isn't threatened by the Beatles. He's tired. Tired of the machine. Tired of the competition. tired of being the king. Since his mother died in 1958, Elvis has been different, quieter, more introspective, less interested in fame, more interested in meaning. The movies pay well, the concerts are fine, but the joy is gone. The hunger that drove him in 1954, 1955, 1956, dead, buried with Gladys. Elvis visits his mother's grave every week, sometimes twice a week, always alone. He drives himself. No security, no Memphis Mafia, just him and his memories. He brings fresh flowers, usually gardenias, Gladys's favorite. He talks to her, not out loud, in his mind, tells her about his life, his struggles, his doubts. The grave is his sanctuary, the only place he feels peace. February 6th, 1964, the day before the Beatles land, the day before the vandalism. Elvis drives to Forest Hill Cemetery, 3 hours p.m. The weather is cold, gray skies, wind cutting through the trees. He parks his Cadillac far from the Presley plot, walks the distance, hands in his pockets, head down. When he reaches the grave, he stops. The marble headstone gleams, perfectly maintained, fresh flowers from his last visit. He kneels, runs his fingers across the engraved letters. Gladys Love Presley, April 25th, 1912, August 14th, 1958, beloved mother. He stays for an hour, silent, still, at peace. He doesn't know this is the last time he'll see it untouched. February 7th, 1964, 7:35 a.m. Elvis's phone rings. He's still asleep. Graceland, master bedroom. The call wakes him. He answers, groggy, confused. The voice on the other end is frantic. Mr. Presley, this is Sergeant Howard with Memphis PD. There's been an incident at Forest Hill Cemetery. Elvis sits up. His heart pounds. What kind of incident? Your mother's grave, sir. It's been vandalized. Elvis doesn't remember the drive to the cemetery. One moment he's at Graceland. The next he's standing at the grave. Police everywhere. Yellow tape. Photographers being pushed back. A crowd forming. But Elvis only sees one thing. The headstone. Cracked down the middle. The spray paint. Red. Dripping. Elvis is dead. Long live the Beatles. He stands perfectly still. Doesn't speak. Doesn't cry. Just stares. Sergeant Howard approaches. Mr. Presley, we're doing everything we can to find who did this. Elvis doesn't acknowledge him. Red West, who drove Elvis here, steps closer. Boss, let's go. You don't need to see this. Elvis shakes his head. I need to see it. I need to know what they think of me. The press arrives within 20 minutes. Reporters, cameramen. They shout questions. Elvis, how do you feel? Is this because of the Beatles? Do you blame the fans? Will you respond? Elvis says nothing. Just stares at the grave. At his mother's name. At the hate scrawled across her final resting place. Finally, he turns. Walks to his car. Red drives him home. Elvis doesn't say a word the entire ride. By noon, the story is everywhere. Radio, television, newspapers. Elvis's mother's grave vandalized on Beatles' arrival day. Beatlemania turns violent. Fans desecrate Presley grave. The media frenzy is immediate, and it's exactly what they want. Controversy, conflict. Elvis versus Beatles. The narrative writes itself. But then something unexpected happens. Elvis calls a press conference. February 8th, 1964, 10 a.m., Graceland, the front lawn, 62 reporters attend, cameras everywhere. Elvis walks out, dressed simply, black slacks, white shirt, no performance, no showmanship, just Elvis. He stands at a podium, clears his throat. The crowd quiets. He speaks. Elvis's voice is calm, measured, strong. Yesterday, someone vandalized my mother's grave. They wrote hateful words. They invoked the Beatles' name. They tried to start a war. He pauses. I'm here to say there is no war. The reporters murmur. Elvis continues. I've been listening to the Beatles since they broke in England. I think they're talented. I think they're exciting. I think they're exactly what music needs right now. Shock ripples through the crowd. This is not what anyone expected. If someone vandalized my mother's grave to make me hate the Beatles, they failed. Because I don't hate them. I admire them. He looks directly at the cameras. To John, Paul, George, and Ringo. Welcome to America. I hope you have a wonderful time. Don't let this ugliness taint your visit. You didn't do this. Your fans didn't do this. One sick person did this, and they don't represent any of us. The press conference continues. Elvis fields questions. One reporter asks, "Aren't you upset that they're replacing you?" Elvis smiles. Sadly, nobody replaces anybody. Music evolves. When I started, people said I was replacing Frank Sinatra. That wasn't true either. There's room for everyone. Another reporter, "But your sales are down. Your relevance is fading." Elvis nods. Maybe. But that's not the Beatles' fault. That's life. Things change. I've had my time. If it's their time now, good for them. The honesty is stunning. No bitterness, no defensiveness, just grace. One reporter pushes harder. "Are you saying you're done? That you're giving up?" Elvis's expression changes. "Come serious. I'm saying I'm not going to fight over something that doesn't matter. Chart positions don't matter. Magazine covers don't matter. What matters is the music. What matters is connecting with people. What matters is being real." He pauses. "My mother taught me that. She said, 'Baby, don't ever get so big you forget who you are.' And yesterday, when I saw her grave destroyed, I remembered that. Because fame is temporary, success is fleeting, but who you are as a person, that lasts forever." The press conference ends. Elvis walks back inside. The reporters scatter, filing stories, calling editors. Within hours, the headlines change. Elvis shows class in face of tragedy. Presley welcomes Beatles despite vandalism. The King's grace under pressure. The narrative shifts. Suddenly, Elvis isn't the has-been. He's the elder statesman, the man who rose above, the legend who didn't need to fight. But here's what the press doesn't know. Here's what nobody knows. After the press conference, Elvis makes a phone call. He calls Capitol Records, the Beatles' American label, asks to speak with their tour manager, a man named Mal Evans. The conversation is brief, private. But later, Mal Evans will tell people what Elvis said. Elvis's message to the Beatles: "I'm sorry your arrival was tainted by what happened to my mother's grave. That's not the welcome you deserved. When you have time, if you want, come visit Graceland. I'd like to meet you, not for press, not for photos, just as musicians, just as people who love the same thing. The invitation is genuine, no cameras, no publicity, just respect. Musician to musician. The Beatles are shocked." John Lennon later tells a reporter, "We heard about the grave. We felt sick. We thought Elvis would hate us. Then he invites us to his home? That's class. That's real class." Paul McCartney adds, "Elvis was our hero. Before we were the Beatles, we were just kids listening to Heartbreak Hotel in Liverpool. He was everything we wanted to be." George Harrison. The man's mother's grave was destroyed and his response was kindness. That's not just class. That's enlightenment. Ringo Starr. We couldn't believe it. Here's the king, the biggest star in the world, and he treats us like equals, like mates. That changed how we saw fame. The meeting happens 2 weeks later, February 21st, 1964. Graceland, 11:15 p.m. The Beatles arrive in a rented car. No security, no entourage. Just the four of them. Elvis answers the door himself. He's wearing casual clothes, jeans, a sweater. He shakes their hands. "Come in. Make yourselves at home." They spend 5 hours together, in the music room, playing guitars, trading stories, talking about music, about the pressure, about the fame, about what it means to be in this strange, beautiful, terrible business. No cameras document this night, no reporters present. But years later, all 5 men will talk about it. Elvis will say, "They reminded me why I started. They had that hunger, that joy I used to have. Being around them made me feel young again. John Lennon will say, Elvis was like Buddha, calm, wise. He'd been through everything, we were just starting. He gave us advice without preaching. Paul McCartney, we played That's All Right together. Elvis on guitar, me on bass, John on rhythm, George on lead, Ringo on drums. It was magic, pure magic. George Harrison, I never forgot that. Ringo Starr, best night of my life. Playing music with Elvis Presley in his living room. No audience, no pressure, just music. They talk about the vandalism. Elvis brings it up, quietly, over coffee at 2 a.m. I want you to know, none of that was your fault. John Lennon responds immediately, we know, but still, we're sorry it happened. Elvis shakes his head. Don't be. It taught me something. What's that? That people will try to make us enemies, the press, the fans, the industry, but we don't have to play that game. Paul nods. We won't. Good. Because there's enough ugliness in the world. We don't need to add to it. The night ends at 4:17 a.m. The Beatles leave, exhausted, happy. Elvis walks them to the door, shakes their hands again. You guys are going to be huge. Bigger than me, bigger than anyone. John laughs. We'll see. Elvis smiles. I know. And when you are, remember tonight. Remember that it's possible to be big without being cruel. Famous without being fake. They promise. Drive away. Elvis stands on the porch, watches their car disappear. Feels something he hasn't felt in years. Hope. But the story doesn't end there, because 3 days later, Elvis does something else, something nobody expects. February 24th, 1964. Elvis goes back to Forest Hill Cemetery, brings a crew with him, stonemasons, landscapers, specialists in memorial restoration. They replace the headstone completely. New marble, identical to the original, but better, stronger. They add something new too. A low bronze fence around the grave. Not tall, not imposing, just enough to protect it. To show this space is sacred. Elvis pays for everything. $12,000, out of pocket. He doesn't announce it, doesn't hold a press conference, just does it. The cemetery director, William Hooper, tries to thank him. Mr. Presley, this is incredibly generous. Elvis waves him off. It's my mother. I should have done it sooner. But you didn't have to. Yes, I did. She deserves the best. Always. Here's the part that matters, the part that changes everything. Elvis adds an inscription to the new headstone, below his mother's name, below the dates. 4 words. Love never dies. Simple. Permanent. True. When asked why, Elvis says, because that's what this whole thing taught me. You can vandalize stone. You can spray paint marble. You can try to destroy memory, but love? Love can't be touched. Quick thought. Have you ever responded to hate with something so kind it left people speechless? Drop a comment. The vandals are never caught. Memphis PD investigates for 6 months, interviews dozens of suspects, follows leads, dead ends, nothing. Whoever did it disappears. Elvis is fine with that. When asked if he wants them found, he says, no, I forgive them. The detective is shocked. But Mr. Presley, I forgive them, because holding anger won't bring me peace, and peace is all I want. The Beatles' American tour is a massive success. They appear on Ed Sullivan's show, February 9th, 1964. 73 million people watch, the largest television audience in history. They perform. They charm. They conquer. America falls in love. And through it all, they mention Elvis. In every interview, every press conference. Elvis Presley is the reason we play music. Elvis Presley is our hero. Elvis Presley is the king. The respect is mutual. The friendship real. Over the next 3 years, Elvis and the Beatles stay in contact. Not publicly. Privately. Phone calls. Letters. The occasional visit. In 1965, the Beatles invite Elvis to their Los Angeles concert. He attends, sits in the audience, cheers like any other fan. After the show, they hang out backstage. No press, no photos, just 5 musicians talking about life. Elvis tells them, "You guys are doing it right. Stay humble. Stay together." They take his advice to heart. August 27th, 1965. The Beatles visit Graceland again, this time during the day. Elvis gives them a tour, shows them the music room, the jungle room, the grounds. Finally, he takes them to one place, Forest Hill Cemetery. The 5 of them stand at Gladys's grave. The new headstone gleams in the sun. The bronze fence surrounds it. Flowers fresh. Perfect. Paul reads the inscription aloud. "Love never dies." He looks at Elvis. "That's beautiful, man." Elvis nods. "She taught me that. Everything good in me came from her." John places a hand on Elvis's shoulder. "She'd be proud of you." Elvis's voice cracks slightly. "I hope so." The vandalism becomes a footnote. A strange, ugly moment. But what came after? That becomes the story. Not the hate, the grace, not the destruction, the rebuilding, not the rivalry, the respect. Years later, historians analyze this moment. February 7th, 1964, the day the Beatles arrived, the day Gladys's grave was vandalized, the day Elvis could have declared war, but didn't. Dr. Sarah Hollingsworth, cultural historian. Elvis had every reason to be bitter. His career was fading. The Beatles were rising, and someone desecrated the grave of the person he loved most. But instead of anger, he chose grace. That decision changed how we understand celebrity, rivalry, and humanity. Professor Michael Torres, music historian. The press wanted a fight. The industry wanted drama. The fans wanted sides. Elvis gave them none of that. He gave them wisdom. And in doing so, he elevated himself beyond fame. He became something better. He became real. John Lennon in a 1970 interview. People always ask about our relationship with Elvis. They want drama. They want to hear we hated each other. But it wasn't like that. Elvis was the blueprint. He showed us how to do it. And when that grave thing happened, he showed us something else. How to be human. How to rise above. Paul McCartney, 1975. I've met a lot of famous people, presidents, royalty, icons. But Elvis was different. He didn't need to prove anything. He just was. That press conference after his mother's grave was destroyed, that's when I understood what grace really means. George Harrison, 1980. Elvis taught us that ego is the enemy. When you let go of needing to be the biggest, the best, the most famous, you become free. He was free that day, and it showed. Ringo Starr, 1984. We could have been enemies. The press wanted it. The timing was perfect for a feud. But Elvis said no, and we followed his lead. That's leadership. That's love. Elvis never speaks publicly about the vandalism again. He mentions it once, in 1968, during the '68 comeback special. Between songs, during a candid moment, he says, "You know, people ask me about rivalries, about competition, about who's better, and I always say the same thing. Music isn't a competition. It's a conversation. And the moment you start fighting other musicians, you've missed the point." The audience applauds. Elvis continues. "I learned that the hard way. On a day when someone tried to make me hate people I admired, people I respected, but I refused. Because love is stronger than hate. Always." Gladys's grave is never vandalized again. The bronze fence stands. The inscription remains. Love never dies. Visitors come every day. Fans, tourists, historians. They take photos, leave flowers, pay respects. But more than that, they read those 4 words, and they understand. This isn't just about Elvis and his mother. It's about everyone. Every son and daughter. Every person who's lost someone. Every person who's chosen love over hate. February 7th, 1964. 61 years ago today, the Beatles landed in America. Gladys's grave was destroyed, and Elvis Presley showed the world what it means to be a legend, not through hits, not through fame, not through power, but through grace, through forgiveness, through love that transcends hate. The final piece of this story happens in 1977, August 16th, the day Elvis dies, Graceland, Memphis, Tennessee. When they find him, there's a note in his pocket, handwritten, folded, worn from being carried. It says, "Mama, I tried to live the way you taught me, with kindness, with love, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. I hope I made you proud. I hope I honored your name. I hope you know everything I did was for you. Love never dies. Your itty-bitty." That note is buried with him, in the meditation garden at Graceland, next to his mother, where he wanted to be, where he belongs. The two graves side by side, forever, and on both headstones, the same four words: love never dies. The Beatles send flowers, all four of them, a massive arrangement, white roses, hundreds of them. The card reads, "To Elvis, who taught us how to be more than famous, how to be real. Rest in peace, King. John, Paul, George, Ringo." The flowers are placed at his grave, alongside thousands of others, from millions of fans who loved him, who respected him, who understood what he represented. Today, Graceland receives over 600,000 visitors every year. They tour the mansion, see the cars, view the jumpsuits, but they all end at the meditation garden, at the graves, at Elvis and Gladys, at the words that bind them. Love never dies, and people cry. Not because Elvis was famous, but because his story is their story. Loss, grief, love that endures. In 2019, Paul McCartney returns to Graceland. He's 77 years old, hasn't been there since 1965. He stands at Elvis's grave, alone. Security waits at a distance. Paul kneels, touches the marble, whispers something nobody hears. Later, he tells a reporter, "I thanked him for everything, for the music, for the kindness, for showing us the way." "What did you say exactly?" Paul smiles. "I said, you were right, Elvis. Love never dies. I see that now. I feel that now. Thank you for teaching us." The story of February 7th, 1964 is not about vandalism. It's not about rivalry. It's not about the Beatles versus Elvis. It's about one man's choice to respond to hate with grace, to replace destruction with love, to forgive when the world expected anger. That's what shocked everyone. Not that Elvis was kind, but that he was kind in the face of cruelty, strong in the face of weakness, loving in the face of hate. If you take one thing from this story, let it be this: the world will always try to pit you against others, to create sides, to manufacture drama, to make you choose hate. Don't. Choose what Elvis chose: grace, respect, love. Because those things outlast fame, outlast success, outlast life itself. If this story moved you, consider leaving a comment about a time you chose grace over anger, about a moment you forgave when you could have fought. Honor Elvis's memory by continuing his example, by proving that love indeed never dies. Subscribe to hear more stories about the man behind the myth, the human behind the king, the son who never stopped loving his mother, even when the world tried to make him stop. And unfortunately, they don't make men like Elvis Presley anymore.